Hi, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode. We're going back to blind people who have done awesome stuff because we haven't done one of those for a while. And today we have somebody a little bit different. Jason Barber is here, and from what I've been able to work out so far, he's a fully blind farmer. So say hi, Jason.
Hello, everybody. I guess technically I'm just legally blind. I'm not completely in the dark.
Okay. So how blind are you?
As far as the numbers, I never have really understood the whole numbering aspect here, but they say I'm they said like 22,000. I have a condition of retinitis pigmentosa, and my central vision is pretty limited, but my peripherals is what I use primarily.
So I don't want to stereotype, but your accent suggests that you may have grown up around farming in the that sort of
Yep.
area. Yep.
Yeah, I've
So
been
yeah.
farming, been around the farm, grew up on the farm, been around it all my life.
So well, tell us a little bit about that. Tell us how you well
Just to
how that
give
was
you
growing up and
yeah,
how
just
you
kind of
adjusted to the sight loss.
yeah, just to sort of paint a picture per se for those who are visually impaired out there. I'm located, well, of course, I'm, as you can tell probably by the accent, I am in the southern states, southern United States, specifically the state of Tennessee, southeastern, I guess southeastern middle Tennessee. However, grown up here all my life. I'm 54 years old. I was been active on the farm ever since I was a child, kid, however you guys across the pond would like to call it. but uh, I was diagnosed with a retinal disease back in around 1998 when I was around 27 years old then. It was, of course, retinitis pigmentosa. For those that do know, it's basically at this moment an incurable, non-treatable condition that's slowly deteriorated. Uh, to back up on my farming history, we have, which in some aspects around here, 100-acre farm, but that's kind of for some people that's a small farm. Some people call it a huge farm. So that's all relevant to what you're used to. It's been in my family since 1866. I'm an eighth generation farmer, and for the lack of better words, I guess I'm it, meaning I don't have any children of my own to pass it along to, and really no one else in my family really cares that much about farming. But for me, it's something that I've grown up on, and it's in my blood, so it's really all I know. That's not to say that that's the only thing I've ever done as far as job oriented. I was a career firefighter here from 1991 up until 1999, to where my vision loss more or less put me on the bench as far as being a career firefighter, because obviously driving emergency vehicles was becoming limited. Even though I could still drive my personal vehicle, it became kind of a liability. Once I left the fire department, I still stayed active. I'm actually a assistant chief at my local volunteer fire department here. I've grown up in it as well, so I'm probably, as even though I wasn't an official member until I turned 18 years of age, I did grow up in it. So I'm more or less the last remaining person that was here when our fire department actually started back in '83. So I've had to cope with a big lifestyle change due to my vision loss, but as most visually impaired people, you just learn to adapt and move forward with it. On my farm, to back up on that, I raise cattle and hay. Uh, what I do with my cattle, of course, it's just beef cattle. I sell at the local market a couple of times a year, and to offset even some of the more expenses on the farm, I do bale and square bale hay, just typical grass forage here. So we try to, it's plain and simple. I can still operate farm equipment, even though I'm visually impaired. With my peripherals, I can still operate somewhat safely. I just have to be slow about what I do and meticulous and persistent. But as I said earlier, I've been on this farm all my life, so I basically know it like the back of my hand. So if there's been any holes or creeks or however you want to call it over there, it's just something I know pretty much where everything is. So you just ask the questions and I'll try to fill in the blanks.
I was just thinking it's probably safer driving a vehicle on a farm, a farm vehicle in big open space than trying to accurately get a fire engine up to a burning building.
Yeah, I uh now my farm, I live when my parents passed away, which I can touch on that here in a little bit. When my parents passed away, my brother inherited the home where we grew up from the time I was in about 8 or 9 years old, around 1978, and then I purchased it from him. So I'm back basically where I grew up. But it's my actual farm is approximately 1 mile down the road, and we are, even though it's growing as far as population, we're still a relatively rural area, farmland. So I can relatively safely navigate the roadway from my home down to my farm. I have a four-wheeler ATV, and that's more or less my car. And I can just get on the side of the road and drive down to one place or the other. And a lot of people around here know my situation, so they kind of they kind of stand clear when they see me coming.
Yeah. Making way, yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. Ah. So, is there anything you found particularly difficult? Because in my experience, there's two ways it can go when people find out that they're losing their sight, and that's they either really do pull themselves together, tell tell the world they're not going to be kept down, or sadly, sort of withdraw into themselves and end up never going outside again and living in fear. You've obviously chosen the first option, which is fantastic. But was there anything when you first found out? Because RP is degenerative, isn't it? It only gets worse, as far as I understand it.
Yeah, I think with my diagnosis and the doctor's explanations, they said, you may go completely in the dark blind, but that could be 20 years, it could be 30 years, it could be 50 years, and it could never happen. It's just kind of how you got to address it. And thankfully, which persistence is kind of a thing in our family. We're just don't tell us we can't do something. My grandfather was that way. My dad was that way. And thankfully I inherited those traits from him. So, and my dad and even my grandfather, in a lack of better words, we were always a problem solver. Just don't tell us we can't do something. Of course, for me was the vision aspect of it, but for my dad and even my grandfather, we're gonna find a way to do things, and we're gonna find a workaround. And this is really no different. My grandfather, for many years, even in his own when he got much older, and before his health deteriorated, he was always the type of person, he never would find the easy way out. He would always work hard and do things that people just, they were fascinated. How can you do this? How did you do that? And such as that. So, I inherited those traits because even now, there's people that know me here and have a lot of them who've known me all my life still ask me even today, well, if you can't see well, how do you do this? How do you do that? Or you're just amazing how you do it. And I don't look probably like yourself and as well as some other visual people, impaired. It's not, you don't make it, you're not doing it purposely to draw attention or make light of, hey, look at me. It's just, hey, I just do what I do. You can either do it that way, or as you said, you can just clam up and crawl in a shell and never come out. So it's up to you to set precedents on how you're going to live your life. And I choose to be as free as possible and keep doing. Is it is it a lot of trouble? Are there complications? Are there things that you got to do differently? Absolutely. And for me to give up the career back in 1999, when I had to give up the career as a firefighter, which I always felt like growing up around the fire service, I was going to retire from that. So that was a huge gut punch to me, meaning, I didn't know how I was going to live with myself, because I felt like that was going to be something I was going to do the rest of my life until I couldn't do it anymore. And luckily, with retinitis pigmentosa, on my particular case, now I know there's so many variations, there's so many different levels of it. Luckily, mine deteriorated slowly enough that I could adapt and just compensate for it, even though I didn't know I was compensating. I would do just by feel or smell or hearing, your other senses seem to take over and allow you to do things that you never thought possible. You just have to tap into your other senses to compensate.
Yeah, absolutely. Is a lot of people say to me, "Oh, you're blind, so your hearing is better, or you're blind, so your sense of touch must be better." But that isn't. It's not the case, is it? It's a skill you already have. It's just that because people rely so predominantly on their vision, they never develop it. So if it's something you're forced to or you choose to develop, and anybody can do it. It's it's just that people don't because of because if you can see, you don't need to do that. You don't need to rely on your other senses quite as much.
Well, it's kind of to tell my age, and again across the pond. I don't know how you got, but there was an old night. I say old, a 1980s song. I believe it was a rock song per se, a ballad, but it was like, you don't know what you got until it's gone.
Yeah.
And that's kind of that's where we are with vision loss. You don't know what you've got until it's gone. So luckily, whenever I tell people here all the time, they say, "Well, what do you miss driving, or what is it like not being able to drive anymore?" And I said, "Well, I really can't explain it." I said, "But put your keys on your cabinet and don't touch them for a week. Never being able to drive just for a week, and try that for somebody like myself that hadn't been able to drive in about 17 years." That I try to frame it to where people can understand it, but at the same time, just like any other vision loss, they'll ask, what's it like? Well, what can you see, what you can't see? Can you describe it to me? And I said, well, I can describe it to you, but I always use the kind of the example. It's like diabetes. I can tell you how it would affect me, but if you don't have it, you'll never understand it.
Yeah.
So that goes with the vision loss. I can try my best to describe it, but until you walk in my shoes, you're never going to understand it. And everybody's different.
Yeah. See, I was born with the light and dark perception that I have now. So maybe maybe a percent more, maybe 2% more, but the condition I have is stable. So I didn't have to readjust, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
I grew up with what I already had. So when I was at school, I learned Braille. When everyone else was learning handwriting or whatever.
I
Um,
think that I think that has a lot to do with everybody. It's like it's if I told people, I said, I think I would, if I was going to lose my sight, I would rather never had it than lose it, because you don't know. There it goes again. You don't know what you got till it's gone. So if you've never had vision, or you've always had very, very poor vision, you know what to expect. But for somebody that either suddenly loses their sight or loses their sight quickly, you just really don't know how to adapt. Whether it's an injury or some unforeseen health issues takes your sight from you, that's really a scary aspect. I mean, for you, you haven't really had great vision all your life, and for me, I had it for about the first 27 years of my life, but at the same time, I still have some. So I'm able to cope with it because I'm able, again, to adapt to it as it decreases. But luckily, just like with you and so many in the visual, visually impaired community, there's so much assistive technology out there now. That's something that, we didn't have 30 years ago like we do now,
Oh,
or even in the last 2 years, how much it's advanced.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I always say to people, it's never been a better time in history to be blind. Just
Yes, exactly. I agree with that.
with the introduction of um, like the AI image recognition and things like that. Um, I mean, I remember I remember the beginning of the blind tech coming in, where if you wanted a screen reader on your computer, you had to plug in an entirely separate speech synthesizer box in through a serial port. It was a big deal, a big inconvenience. And now you buy an iPhone and the the best screen reader software in the world comes free of charge with it. It's
Exactly. And there's so many people now that's well cited. When you mention the word voiceover, like on an iPhone, they're like, what is that? How much does that cost? I've had software companies I've tried to work with about finding some different assistive technologies such as that. I say something about voiceover, and they're like, "What is that? What does that cost?" I said, "Well, if you own an iPhone, it's there automatically. You just got to turn it on."
yeah,
And they're like, "Well, I've never heard of that." So it's almost funny in a way that you take just what I'd say, an old country boy out in Middle Tennessee in the United States, talking to someone that's in a really, a high tech community, but yet they don't even know what voiceover is. Never heard of it. So it kind of gives you a sense of pride that you're able to educate even the most educated people.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I grew up on Windows and Linux to a degree, and I got and the old Nokia phones, and then I got the iPhone 3GS back in whenever it came out. I think it was 2008 or 2007, and I've never had another phone since. Now I use the iPhone. I've got an iPad. Um, I use a MacBook for work. Um, we've got, I think we've even got a couple of the Apple TVs kicking around somewhere. I've got the Apple Watch, which has also got voiceover on it. Um,
Yes.
yeah, if Apple make it, it has voiceover on it now, and
I think what I was telling people here just recently, I was speaking at an event a couple of months ago now almost, and I was telling them, like you said, now's the time to be visually impaired. But I said, for the longest time, the vision loss was outrunning the technology. But now the technology is actually outpacing the vision loss, meaning that, it's advancing well enough that, when you get to a point that you need something different, you don't really have to search for the technology. It's there. You just have to, of course, find the right one for you, but it's there. Where before you had to wait on the technology to catch up. But like I said, it's advancing so much now with things like AI and your meta glasses and Envision, and it's really exciting to see how things are coming right along.
do you have the Meta glasses?
No, I've got, and I'll get into this story here in just a moment, but there's a company that I deal with here that they're more or less quote unquote assistive technology trainers, is an organization located here in the Western Tennessee. And they brought me a pair, which I have a very, very good working relationship with them. And they, they brought a pair out for me to try. And for what I was doing with it, it just would not work. And if we've, I'd like to back up and kind of the farming aspect and tell you and your listeners kind of how I'm where I am with assistive technologies.
Yeah.
Um,
So
well, okay, like I said, I grew up on the farm, and it's kind of a on a religious aspect here, it's kind of a testimony on how God has really helped me out and put the right people at the right time at the right place for me to be able to continue doing what I'm doing. Like I said, I've always grown up on the farm. For a long time, it was my dad, myself, and my grandfather. My grandfather passed away in 1997. Of course, he was 82 years of age, and he had got older, of course, and health deteriorated. Well, then when he passed away, it was my dad and myself who maintained the farm. My dad owned the most of it, where I was kind of his helper. Well, like I said, in 1998, about the time my grandfather passed away, is when I was diagnosed with retinitis pigmentosa, or we noticed my eyesight was deteriorating. So, I knew my dad was getting older. He had Parkinson's and dementia. Not real bad, but it was like anything else. It was going to get worse. So what we did, knowing that his health was going to get worse, my eyesight was going to get worse, but we both wanted to make sure that if something happened to him health wise, I could still maintain my farm and keep doing it. So we knew that my eyesight was going to continue to decrease. So we started establishing the farm as I guess you would say, a quote unquote, an accessible farm, meaning we
yeah.
started making changes to where I could um, operate the farm even visually impaired. So that by doing that, to give a more description, we started adding new fences and new gates and things to where we could keep our cattle up, and I could do work with them if I needed to by myself. We started adding new corral systems, new things to where we could vaccinate our cattle much easier, and I could actually work with my livestock in a safer manner. Was it completely safe? Never with cattle. It's just the way it
No.
is. You're never going to be 100% safe. Um, but luckily, we was able to do that and kind of get things going. And to fast forward, one of my primary issues I had always been concerned about was that my cattle have livestock tags in their ears with corresponding numbers to know what cattle or which animal has which and which number, so we could keep records of the cattle.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Like serial
so
numbers.
yeah, sort of. Yeah, it was like an ear tag that was a big ear tag that would have the number, say 15 on it, or 28, or 32, or whatever. And then my dad was big with Excel spreadsheets, and he would keep those numbers and keep information to say whichever cow had whatever calf and the date it was born and the gender of the animal and color and just stuff like that. Well, I've always been curious, okay, since my eyesight is deteriorating, how am I going to continue doing this if something happens to my dad? Because it's getting where I can't read the numbers efficiently. So once we moved ahead, and this is kind of where the fascinating part is, tragedy actually in my family brought uh, praise, so to speak. Um, what I did was what I say what I did and I'm trying to get my dates right. February the 14th of I'm sorry, 2000, February 14th of 2018, which would be Valentine's Day. my parents and I were going out to eat, taking my mom to a Valentine's Day meal, and we were in our area, and we were crossing a crosswalk, and my parents were right. I don't know if you can hear my text messages going off or not,
No,
but
no.
um, we were crossing over a crosswalk, and my mom and dad were behind me, and as they was going through the crosswalk, a pickup truck came through the crosswalk and struck both of them.
Ooh.
And of course, now bear in mind, again, I've been in the emergency services most of my life. So I turned around 10 seconds sooner, and this guy would have hit me. But luckily, I was across the crosswalk. I looked around, and this pickup truck had hit my mom and dad. Well, more or less, it killed my mom right there, dead. I mean, she was still alive technically, but I knew her time was limited. And my dad, I thought my dad was actually dead too, but luckily he was just knocked unconscious, and finally he came back too. So, I'm like, okay, I thought there for a moment, just in a matter of seconds, my mom and dad both were dead. And of course, they both were kind of my caregivers. So I was like, okay, I'm kind of in the back of my mind, what am I going to do now? Luckily, dad made it, and I kind of became his caregiver because, like I said earlier, he had some dementia and Parkinson's. So I had to start kind of taking care of him, and he took care of me, and we did what we did. And that's not to say other people didn't pitch in, and family and friends to help us, but it was kind of a gut punch again, a reality check, how short life is. Well, at that time, all right, this is kind of the testimony how God kind of put people in the right place at the right time. My brother and his family lived in Knoxville, Tennessee, which were about 3 hours east of us, and my niece was running cross country, and one of my then sister-in-law was talking to one of the mothers there in Knoxville, and they just was talking about just small talk and
Yeah.
asking, okay, what do you do? What is your job? What do you do here? And Jessie, my sister-in-law, was talking to Eileen, which was one of the parents, and Eileen was saying, well, I work for the University of Tennessee in the agricultural extension office. And they were like, okay, well, what do you do there? And she said, well, I work with an organization called Agribility. Okay, what is Agribility? And she said, well, we're a program located across the United States in about 21 states that help farmers who have become disabled for whatever reason, whether it's mobility, vision, hearing, veterans in the military, or such as that, to get into farming or continue farming. And my sister-in-law was like, what? And then she started telling Eileen about me and my vision loss. So up to that point, I never knew, heard anything about agribility, and it's been around for probably 25 or 30 years across in different
Yeah, I
places.
think it's been around since at the end of the Second World War. I think in
Yeah,
one form or another.
I'm not exactly sure. It's been around a while, but I don't know if as far as there's probably been programs that's been around something like that, but as far as the name agribility itself, organization wise, I'm wanting to think about 30 years. I had to go back and research. I should know that. But Eileen got with some representatives of the Tennessee ag people, and they came out to our farm, and my dad and I were just telling them, what our concern was about my vision loss and his health and how I wanted to continue farming. And they were like, well, we think we can help. And I'm like, there again, I had never heard of agribility, knew nothing about it. So they came out, and of course, here in the States, we have a division of vocational rehabilitation services. I don't know if you guys have something similar to that or not over there,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
I don't know if it's called the same, but it's the same principle. You know, they help rehab people to keep them working and get them back in the
Yeah,
workforce.
yeah.
So
Same sort of thing,
I
different
I
name.
was able to make connect. Yeah, I was able to communicate with them and meet with them, and of course, they didn't understand how somebody blind wanted to farm. You know, that was just something unheard of. You know, why would a blind guy want to work with a 1,000 pound cow? You know, so it's like it was kind of something new to them. But after I finally convinced them that, you know, it's not, I'm not here to make a lot of money on it. Yeah, you got to make a living, but this farm has been in my family since 1866. I had farmed it all my life and been around it, so it was in my blood, and I wanted to keep it going. Even if my dad passed away, I wanted to know how, if I could do it. So they finally accepted my proposal, and they decided they were going to help. So what they do is they put me in contact with an organization here in Tennessee that I was telling you about with the medical access. The Star Center is called. It's a nonprofit organization, and they come out and they kind of assess your position, your job, what you want to do. And farming, even to them, was new. They were working with agribility, and they looked and said, okay, well, we think you could use this form of assisted technology, just like a screen reader, a Zoom text for the computer, which I had never heard of, and things like that, an iPad. And we were just trying things because, they never had worked with somebody that wanted to work with cattle. So we were trying a lot of different assistive technologies and just kind of making things work. Well, once they present back to vocational rehab, we think he could use this, and this type equipment and technologies. So vocational rehab would buy it for me and let me try it. And some of it would work and some of it wouldn't. But we had to start somewhere. So, and that's where I kind of started the whole working relationship with agribility. And I've been able to, since I've started working with agribility, and I'm the type too that I like to figure out things. They may get me a form of assistive technology, and it may not necessarily work, but I want to see if I can make it work. It's kind of
Yeah.
what I tell people a lot of times. It's like I know what it's designed to do, but I want to know what it can do. Let's get the
Yeah.
most out of this equipment. Let's find a workaround. Don't tell me it can't work or it's not. I know it's probably not meant to do that, but I use, just like AI, I do things with it they never thought about it doing with it. So that's kind of the fascinating part of it. And now I'm able to work with them, and now I'm helping other people through agribility and the Star Center and vocational rehab. I'm able to communicate with people, and they say, well, can you do this? And you can. I'm like, sure you can. Try this. I mean, there's been people across the United States now that are reaching out to me asking for help. Can you do this? Can you do that? I'm able now to attend nationwide conferences that in different parts of the United States, and speaking and sharing. I mean, I tell your listeners, like I tell my people here, I'm not certified, nor am I a professional in anything other than I'm a professional at trying to figure out something. I like to say here, I don't like to be beat, meaning I don't want to give up. I want to find
Yeah.
out what this can do. I want to know what it, don't, just finding different things that, like meta glasses. Whoever would have thought a person could use meta glasses on a farm? And they just, yeah, you can use them for a variety of things, but what I tried to use them for was recognizing my cattle tags, and it just doesn't work well. It's not
No.
it I'm assuming it's because your animals won't sit still long enough really to for it to process the information, if that makes sense.
You
uh,
have you considered air tags?
Uh, y- yes and no, but you've got to be somewhat within range of them. And I don't know about the weatherproof aspect of them. And
Um,
that's been kicked around. And I'm not saying it won't work. I mean, like I said, it's just 5 years ago when I was actually kind of discussing them, or 4 year, whatever it was, they might have not worked then. But as I said earlier, the technology is advancing so much now, they may work. And there's so much
I
technology out there.
I have
Go ahead.
AirTags on my dog's collars.
Yeah.
So if I when I take them out for to run off the lead, uh, I've trained them now so that when I'll say to Siri on my phone, "Hey, find," and I've got the AirTags named as the with the dog's name, so I'll say,
Uh-huh.
"Find Bo," and then it'll make her AirTag beep, and then she knows then to come back to me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, of course, I don't know if a cow is smarter than a dog or not. So, yeah.
But I was thinking though, because now they have um the different communication chips in them.
Yeah.
If you pick whichever number from the list and then click find nearby, it gives you down to the nearest centimeter directions. So it'll tell you
Yeah, and I've been curious.
within
Yeah, go
yeah
ahead.
within like 50 meters outside, it'll say 50 meters this way, and as you get closer and closer, it narrows it down, and then it's sort of like the old missile lock on Top Gun.
Oh, yes.
So it's
Uh-huh.
like beep 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 beep, beep, and then you're
Yeah.
really really close. Yeah,
Yeah, it kind of zooms you in on your target, so to speak.
yeah, and then
Yeah,
as you put the phone to the tag, it identifies that it is the tag you want. And it might get quite expensive though, depending on how many cows you've got.
I've got about 30 total. But I mean, it would be something that you could buy three or four of just to try it first.
Yeah, for sure. And you could use them
Yeah.
again every year, or every however long
Yeah.
you have a cow for. And you can get
Yeah.
fully
And that's the
waterproof
thing.
holders.
That that's the beauty about being in this type of surroundings, and that's why I enjoy communicating. That's why I get part of these Facebook groups and such as that. It gives me an opportunity to what I call network. It's like I always tell people around here. Everybody knows somebody. Meaning, I may not know the answer, and I know Dave, and Dave may not know the answer, but Dave may know somebody that knows the answer. So if you don't ask and don't try to network out and reach out to people to get answers, you're never going to find out anything. You just can't. As I like to say here in the South and in the country, it's like, yeah, can't never could do anything. If you say can't, then you never can. And obviously, I mean, we have to be realistic in our life, especially being visually impaired. There are certain things you just simply can't do. No matter how hard you try, you just can't do it. But there's always ways to find workarounds. And see, when I just like, if you share information with me or some of your listeners that are visually impaired share, then I can take that information and share with people that I know here.
Yep.
And that's kind of the rewarding aspect of all this. If I went completely blind tomorrow and I could no longer do my farm, I could continue this networking thing and talking to other people. So I guess you'd say I'm picking up a second job.
Yeah, and whilst doing your current job as well. Still,
Yeah, and
it's something you.
planning. I'm a planner.
Yep.
So the some like I said, with and then back to my story about my mom and dad getting killed, or my mom dying, and then my dad, his health. But the strange part about it is, like I said, I discovered agribility in 2018, and my dad and I, we started doing things on the farm to be ready. Well, one of the worst things came true in 2020 that I wasn't really ready for yet. my dad passed away in August of 20. So from 2018, when I lost my mom, to 2020, when I lost my dad, I had discovered agribility, vocational rehab, assistive technologies. So that that scary feeling that I had in the back of my mind, what am I going to do when I lose my dad? Because on our farming operation, you hear the old adage, well, we do anyway, brains and brawn. You have the smart person that works on things, and then you have the person that's the muscle of the
Yeah.
operation. So dad, he was kind of the eyes of the operation, and I was the brawn. Since his health was deteriorating and he was getting older, he could still use his eyes, and he'd say, well, that number on that cow is 82 and that number is that, and then I would do the rest. So we were a great team. Well, when he passed away, for lack of better words, I lost my eyes of the operation. So that's where I started diving into assistive technologies and trying to find answers, and talking to other companies and telling them what I want to do. I tried to explain, even some high tech uh, livestock companies that were here in the States. I'm like, okay, I understand you don't have something that necessarily will do what I can do, but if you could find something that would work for me, it would work for anybody, well sighted or not,
Yep.
elderly people. So you could actually reach a lot, lot larger demographics of people. To They don't have to be blind, they don't have to be visually impaired, just something that will help. And and they're like, well, we can't do that. We can't do that. And I'm like, I'm the type. I'm like, there again. Don't tell me you can't do it. I mean, we put a man on the moon in 1969.
Yeah,
So
you can make
don't tell
accessible
me we
cow
can't do
tags. Yeah.
this. Yeah, don't tell me we can't do this. It's the point of, do you want to do it? And so that's where and I've often volunteered. I'm like, put me on your research and development team. Let's just say a prime example, and I'll give this short example. RFID tags, radio frequency tags. That
Yep.
was one of the first technologies that we tried. And you could put this electronic tag in an animal's ear, and it had this stick reader, this wand that you'd have to get, within 20 inches. So if you put the animal in the vaccination area, the head catch, you could wand it, and the number and information would show up on this little screen. Well, guess what? What's wrong with that little screen and being visually impaired?
Exactly. Well,
And so
now you could probably take a picture of that screen with something like "Be My Eyes," and it would tell you what was on it.
yeah, but what I told him was, I'm like, you know what? Why don't you just put a voice synthesizer on your reader, and you can turn it on and off,
Yep.
where it was read what's on the screen. It can't be that expensive. And the thing about it is my angle of that was, okay, if you're working with animals and you're using this stick reader, and right now when you wand the tag and the information comes up on the screen and you're there with that animal, what have you got to do to read that screen? You have to take your eyes off the animal,
Yeah,
therefore
and you
put
don't
you in
necessarily
danger.
want to be doing that. Yeah.
No, I mean,
Yeah,
that's right.
that's a good point actually. I wouldn't have thought of that. But that's a
Yeah,
legitimate reason for for them to work on that for
yeah.
sighted
I
people as
mean,
well.
yeah, exactly. I mean, if you had it where it would come up on and really it gives a lot of, to me, from what I tried to work with it, it gave a lot of useless information on initially. Meaning, I don't want to know. It gives like the RFID. It gives this 16-digit number and stuff. I don't want to know all that. I mean, if I want to know it, that's fine. Let me go through the menu and find it and use it. But if I just want to know one simple thing about that animal, that's all I want to know.
Yeah.
Let's don't make it more complex than it needs to be. So that's kind of where I was like, that's you're just, if you and just for instance, if you can visualize, and I know, are you familiar with, I guess, farming or livestock very much?
Not not really. I mean, I grew up in a slightly rural area. Like I know a bit, but it's not a job I could do, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, the reason I'm trying to paint the picture is, okay, let's just say if I'm vaccinating my animals and I put them in a long alleyway, get them lined up, and if I could actually just walk down, if I'm looking for a certain number animal, let's just say a number 82 cow, and I know there's something about that animal I need to know, that she may be going to give birth to a calf, or 2 weeks ago I gave her some medication and I need to revaccinate. I need to find that animal. Well, if I could, using radio frequency tags, if I could walk down beside the alleyway, not in the alleyway, but outside, and just scan as I walk down through there, and that voice on that reader would simply read out the numbers, 15, 22, 85. And then when I got the number 82, I'll be like, okay, there's the one I need right there. I don't even have to see it. It's just reading it to me. And I know that animal's coming up. So that's kind of the angle. The only thing about radio frequency tags is well, low frequency tags, you have to be close to the animal to read it. That's why it's low frequency.
Yeah,
NFC tags, which is NFC,
near field
near field
communication. Yeah,
communication tags, you have to be with the animal. You have to
you have
be,
to be near.
within
That's
inches. And with ultra high frequency, the downside to that is it's going to scan everything, and it's very hard to pick out an individual animal. But there again, that's probably changed over the last few years. So there's
that's
where we're
where ultra
trying to
wideband
keep
is
up
going to
with the
come in.
technology.
That's where ultra
Yeah,
wideband is going to come in, which is the system they use on the AirTags for the accuracy work.
yeah, yeah. I think I know they make drones now. You can go with the ultra high frequency tags, and if I had a drone, I could program it to where it would leave my house and fly down to my farm and just scan over the herd, and it could count my animals in just a few moments. Just fly over the top of them and just count them. Bling, 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 bling. There it is. Okay, back home. Here's all your cows, or you're missing this number, or you're missing this number. It would kind of give you. So it's so fascinating. And there again, I know it can be done. It's just you got to find the right people to want to do it.
Yeah,
And I think somebody just like you and myself, or anybody else that's visually impaired, and I'll use just visual as an example, we actually we see things that other people don't. People that can't see can actually see things that others that can see don't. Does that make sense?
yeah, like more metaphorically, sort of
Yeah.
opportunities and stuff. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you just think I think we ourselves, we're forced to think outside the box. So when we think outside the box, we're probably better problem solvers than those that don't have to think outside the box.
yeah, for sure. I mean, it's the same as I said earlier about having to use your sense of hearing or your sense of touch. It's a sort of do or die, isn't it? You
Yeah,
either learn to think outside the box or you don't do anything, you know?
I'll give I have people here. I'll give a shameless plug to my YouTube channel, but for several years I've had, like I said earlier, people ask me, so if you can't see, how do you do this? If you can't see, how can you work on the farm? If you can't do this, if you can't. So just over a year ago, about probably 15 or 16 months ago or so, I thought, well, you know what? Rather than me trying to explain to people how I can do this, how I can do that, I actually created a YouTube channel, and I actually show people how I do things.
Well,
This is how I do this. This is because, everybody is different in finding a way. I may do something on the farm completely different on how Dave would do the same job on the farm. So maybe somebody out there that's trying to do something similar to what I'm doing can see how I do it or
yeah, and
understand,
then
because I try to narrate my videos to where somebody that's completely blind can maybe
yeah,
understand it.
I've played a few of your videos. They're very instructive. I will put a link to your channel in the video description. So when this video goes out, if anybody wants to go and check out Jason's channel, there'll be a link in the description for it.
Yeah, it's under farming blind with duck. And the reason it comes with that, first off, I'm farming. First off, I'm blind. And my nickname is Duck. So I just tied it all together and named it as that. And I've also got a Facebook page under the same name. And I've got some actually, and I want to eventually work into that, some historical aspects of my farm, like my great grandfather back in I guess in the 1930s. I can't remember the dates. He uh, he actually run a general store on our farm and had a peddler wagon, and people would come from the community and come and buy things at that little store. And as a matter of fact, the store building itself still exists. It's still there. So that's kind of, a lot of people think that's pretty neat on our farm. But yeah, for your listeners, I love to have people subscribe to my channel. Even help, drop me a comment and say, hey, I'm from the UK or I'm from wherever, and let me know that, I like to see how far I'd get to reach people and meet other people. And then, as I tell people here, they ask me, well, can you help? Will you come speak to so and so? And I'm like, I'll talk to a fence post. I'll talk to anybody. I don't care.
Hey, when if your site does depreciate further, you may find that you do that. I've spoken to mannequins before by accident. Apologized apologized to lampposts. If you walk past a light pole and you just brush your shoulder on it, like, oh, sorry, oh, that's a lamppost.
Yeah, I actually made a funny Facebook post about that a while back. I was like, yeah, I was in a department store here and I looked up and there was this pretty blonde across the way there. And I noticed she was throwing her hand up and waving at me. And I waved back and I went over to speak to her, to come to find out she was just a mannequin. So imagine my disappointment. I thought I'd found the love of my life. She wasn't much for conversation, but she did what I told her to do: stay still.
Uh,
But no, it's interesting, and I'm which, being involved with the fire department all these years, I've been kind of, even when I worked as a career firefighter, I kind of, even in around 91 or so, uh, I kind of got nominated to do fire prevention and go speak to children and even adults and things like that. So I kind of adopted the communication thing, just by accident, really. And so that's where I kind of, as you can tell, I mean, I tell people, I said, I'm country. I'm about as country as you can get. And so the lingo and the accent and such as that, but it's really no different than me hearing Dave speak. So, which I've always been fascinated with the accents and the people across the pond. And I would love at some point, that's in my bucket list. If I can ever, I want to get over that way sometime and take a cruise or a tour or something to see other parts of the country while I can still see a little something.
well, if you're ever over this way, give me drop me a message and we'll meet up and I'll introduce you to English beer.
Yeah, we've talked, me and my wife, we've talked about going to shits, and that's another blessing. There is her. She's actually in a wheelchair. She has spina bifida, but she really see since and we met. That's another God thing. The way I see it is, we met in 2017, and it's kind of like the God knew that my mom was going to die. He was going to take her, bring her home, so to speak, and he blessed me with Melissa, and we were able. So with her being in a wheelchair, me being blind, we're like a really great team. She can help me with the vision aspect, and then I can help her in other ways as well. So she was a really big help and a blessing to help take the place of mom. Maybe not necessarily take the place of her, but fill in for her.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think all in all, it's fun, and I enjoy doing it. I've actually done a few podcasts. It's really taken off. I've got several people that's reached out to me, and hey, will you do this? Hey, we do that? And that's something else. Well, again, until my mom passed away tragically, and my dad, I would have never dreamed that I'd be able to go across the United States and visit other areas through agribility. I mean, I've been to Madison, Wisconsin, Spokane, Washington State, Las Cruces, New Mexico, Atlanta, Georgia, and if whenever they schedule the one for next year, I'm sure I'll be there as well. So it's really been. I never would have thought in a million years I'd have these opportunities to visit, let alone being visually impaired and getting to go to these places. It's like the blindness has almost been a blessing.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, it's opens up opportunities that you wouldn't have necessarily had access to.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I never would. Like I said, it's just, it's amazing. And I'm really loving, how life is going and such as that, I guess. And again, that it's kind of setting things up to where, if my eyesight does deteriorate, and I can't do anymore, then this is just gives me another avenue to be able to do. And I've actually thought about trying into the podcast type thing, but I've got so many things going on right now. It's just going to be hard to do. Now, coming up this next fall and winter when the farming season really, really slows down, that's where I might still entertain the idea. As a matter of fact, there's a in South Carolina here in the States, uh, there's a podcast group, Sight Beyond Sight, and they seen my story on the AI for the Blind Facebook page, which is a really, really popular page. And they asked me to come on as their guest. Well, since then, now I've kind of become part of the team, and they'll have me part of their podcast like once a month. And so that's really been interesting. And I've done two or three, so that's really growing. So being able to network and meet new people, and it's just something I really, really enjoy. And now that I actually made a Facebook post the other day, I'm getting to do my first podcast across the pond,
Yeah,
so to
there you
speak, and I'm like, this is they're like, I said, I'm finally going
go.
global.
Yeah, a little expand the reach for you a little bit, hopefully. But yeah,
Yeah, and
I'll put links to links to all your stuff in the description page. So you've got
great.
if people want to check out your YouTube channel, which I highly recommend. It's very entertaining and informative. And I'll put, if you like, a link to your Facebook page in there as
Sure.
well.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
YouTube and your
Look it up.
Facebook.
I actually, have you ever got I know you looked at my channel. Have you seen the documentary that they did?
I haven't, no, not yet.
I've got there again, about a little over a year ago, I felt like that I really had a story to tell, meaning growing up on the farm, becoming a career firefighter and having to give that up to uh, the introduction to agribility, and then the tragic death of my parents. I thought, you know what? I think this is a story that needs to be told. So I hired a a video crew to come out. It took about a year to put it all together, but I wanted to do a documentary / testimony, and it's on my YouTube channel, and it's called Walk by Faith, Not by Sight. It's a
Okay.
Christian aspect of it, and the journey of Jason Duck Barber, and it actually has some old 8 millimeter real type movies of me on the farm with my granddad as a kid, me jumping around in mud puddles and playing on the farm when
Wow.
I was a kid. So it's got a lot of old footage of that, and then interviews of people that have been part of my journey, good friends of mine, family, the county mayor here, the county fire chief, the one who actually hired me when I was 21 years old, 20 years old, and even the representatives from Agribility and such as that. So it's an hour long, but I think it's something you'll definitely get something out of. And
Yeah,
it is on that YouTube channel.
I'll check it out. Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, it really has been a pleasure having you on, and yeah, if you ever want to come on again, or if you do start your own podcast and you want me to come on, then
Sure.
yeah, I'd be up for that definitely.
Yeah. I'm always up for gaining new friends, even across the way. I mean, I've got one or two. I know I've got one guy. He's a Facebook friend. He's from Scotland. I don't know which part of Scotland, but I know he's in Scotland. And so now I got in the UK's. I don't. I guess now geographically, I'm not real smart on a lot of things, so I don't know in relation to Scotland and the UK if it's all the same or not. Or
It's
similar.
attached by land, um,
Yeah.
but it's a long way. It's probably well, again, that's relative, I suppose, because in the States, a long drive is a few days, isn't it? But you can drive all the way
Yeah.
across the UK in less than 12 hours if the traffic's okay, you know?
Oh well, yeah. It takes a good. I would say if you drove from the Atlantic Ocean to Pacific Ocean across the country here, it would probably take you 48 hours or so if you drove it straight through.
Yeah, so yeah.
So yeah,
The
it's yeah, we've got one state here, the state of Texas. I believe it takes you about the same time to drive across your country as it is to get across that state.
Yeah, I think Texas is bigger by area than the UK,
Yeah.
than England, certainly.
So, so yeah, yeah, I'd love to get together again sometime, or if you get, and whenever I'm slow and you've got another podcast and you need some old dumb country boy to come on board, I can definitely add a different flavor to your show.
We do a podcast actually called Only in the UK, where we talk about like weird things that British people do, and then we get somebody else on from a different part of the world and discuss those things. So that might be fun if you're up for that one day.
Sure, yeah, we do it sometime. It don't have to be vision oriented. It can always be something just how we do things here in the southern states.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't
Oh,
like I said if the UK or in your particular area or whatever, I don't. They may or may not, but if they don't have an organization like Agribility, I think it's definitely something worth investigating because it's definitely a benefit to a lot of people.
I'm gonna have a look, and if there is, um, then again I'll yeah, and we'll put an Agribility link on the video as well, if for just for anybody who wants
Yeah,
to check
they've
out what
got a
they do.
website, and
Yeah,
yeah,
I'll
you go to their. I think it's agribility.org, and they
I'll
can which you can. I mean, you can Google it, I'm sure, and find it.
yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
yeah, they can definitely. You can go in there and see a lot of stuff of what they're doing, and then there's different states that has their own agribility program, and I know there's several that has YouTube channels and testimonies and stories of what they do on their part. So it's definitely something that you can research and take advantage of. And I know that, and a matter of fact, I know Agribility itself has been in different parts of the world helping others. Here, I think about a year ago, they were in Guam helping out. So
Okay, so they
I
get
know.
about a bit.
Do I? I'm sorry.
They get around a bit. They get
Yeah,
about a bit. Yeah.
exactly. I think they're definitely open to helping other countries, and for other, just like the UK. If they don't have something like this, I'm sure our people would be more than welcome to help establish something like it and get it started. You know, I think it would be definitely a cool experiment to have agribility branch out globally.
Yeah.
So, it's like you say, you don't know what you got till it's gone. And if you don't, agribility is one of those programs, people just don't know about it. That's just a
Yeah.
fact. They
Unless
just,
you
it's
need it,
like,
you wouldn't even look, would you? You know?
well, that's kind of what one of my, Eileen from the agribility here in Tennessee, she actually said that, I think, in my documentary. Agribility's, they don't know about you until you need them.
Yeah.
So, that's where I've developed such a good working relationship with them, because I'm not the type of person that, okay, I need you to help me, and that's as far as it goes. I want to give back as much as I get. So if you help me, I'm going to try to help you. And I know right now they're looking at different avenues, maybe to hopefully try to bring me into the fold a little bit more and become a little more active, because I am the type that, when I find information like assistive technologies and stuff like that that can help people, I pass it along to them, because they just can't. I mean, there's just so much technology out there; they can't keep up with everything. It's impossible.
No.
It's just
I mean,
it's ever changing. It's ever growing.
it's part of my job, and like because I review it and things, and I can't keep up with it all.
When you're talking about, I want to give another plug. You're talking about reviewing different assistive technologies, stuff like that, and I'm sure I'll be surprised if you do. There's a guy that does a YouTube channel called The Blind Life.
Yeah, I
His
know the
name
guy.
is
Yeah,
Sam.
yeah.
Oh, do you? Okay, great.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I don't know him personally, but I know his work. I
well,
watch his channel.
he and I communicate pretty regular. As a matter of fact, I would highly recommend you, especially you, and then if any of your listeners are visually impaired, you can actually become a member of his channel for like one. I don't know what the conversion is, but for in the States, $1 a month, and you can become a member of his channel. And then once the first Saturday of each month, he does a what we like to call a support group call, a Zoom call, and all of his members that want to join in, we all meet up and we just talk about different things. Have you tried this? Have you heard about this? And Sam gets to talk about some of the things that he's working on, things like that. So if you ever got the opportunity, I would recommend, looking at maybe becoming a member, and then I mean, you don't have to stay a member. If you do it for a couple of months and you're like, well, this is not my bag, I'm
Yeah,
not going
yeah.
to do it anymore, then so be it.
It's a dollar. It's about 70 pennies.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just it's very very inexpensive, and it's some good information. It's a good time to help and communicate with others in the visually impaired community.
Yeah, I may well do that. Actually, yeah, he's someone I wanted to reach out to about something else as well. So you've reminded me
Oh, he's
about that.
open.
So
Yep. So, but anyway, well, hey, me, like I said, I could talk forever, but we can pick this up at a later date with some different topics, and that would be awesome.
definitely, yeah, absolutely. Right, I'm going to go and make my child some dinner. Um, but yeah, it really has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. For everybody who is watching, please like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, and go and check out Jason's channel. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, guys.